So,
Good point.
Leslie, I'm glad you mentioned like this sort of axis of autocracy that Millet is part of, and comparing him to one of his democratic South American counterparts, who opened up the UN General Assembly this week, as is custom, I understand. Brazil opened up the first day of speeches, and it was their president, Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva, who reflected that many of the world's other leaders, Lula's position reflects that many of the world's other leaders. He drew a link between the crisis facing multilateralism, that is, the inability of governments to productively work together at places like the United Nations, with the erosion of democracy in various societies, like his neighbor Argentina. So, in the face of great power competition and bullying, most countries in the world, especially in the so-called global south, want the United Nations to work as it's intended. So in addition to Lula's speech, we got a speech at the General Assembly this week from Ahmed al-Sharaa, the first Syrian president in almost 60 years to deliver a speech at the UN. It's been since 1967. Now, al-Sharaa was formerly a Al-Qaeda militant in Iraq, known by the nom de guerre Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani, and he spent several years held captive by the U.S. military in Iraq. Now, apparently, he has since renounced Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, and he led the military campaign that finally overthrew longtime Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad. So, interesting to see Syria retake a place on the global stage, even though we are potentially wary of their new guy. But one person who we're definitely wary of is the speaker who followed Lula at the UN, and that was our guy, President Trump. So, in an unhinged, absolutely unhinged address, he went on for like an hour. He was allotted 15 minutes, and in his rambling speech, he let's see. He had no shortage of false claims. He touted peace while telling drug cartels he would blow them out of existence. He questioned the purpose of the UN's existence, but later told the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres that the U.S. is behind the United Nations 100%. Trump claimed he ended 7 wars. He said upswell of support for Palestine would encourage continued conflict and be a reward for Hamas, as Britain, Canada, Australia, Portugal, and France all formally recognized a Palestinian state. He said if Russia does not end its invasion of Ukraine, he's prepared to impose a strong round of powerful tariffs, even though we don't really trade with Russia. He scolded representatives of their countries for immigration policies, telling their countries that they're going to hell. And he described climate change as the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah, thank you.
I like that.
If you guys caught any of Trump's speech, and if you had any thoughts,
Scott, let me ask you this. So, if you follow international politics at all, and it funnels through the United Nations, people tend to put their best foot forward when let's talk about, Nikita Khrushchev, who, took his shoe off and slammed on the desk and we will destroy you, that kind of thing. All right. But,
there was that time Yasser Arafat pulled out his gun, and there was that time Gaddafi went on a rant for like an hour. Yeah.
So what bothers me is what it makes us look like as a country. When you get past the BS, this is a good place to live. Except for kids riding on little scooters and that kind of thing, making racket and yelling at each other. I don't hear gunshots during hunting season. It's a good place to live. So why in the world do we have to go in front of the United Nations and tell them that they're all going to hell? Really? That's ridiculous. I don't know if that was his ploy to support Christian nationalism, kind of like his thing back after Charlottesville when he said to the Proud Boys, stand by, and, all that. So the, when he goes off script, which he did in this case, went off script, and you can always tell when he does because he absolutely doesn't make any sense and he makes these absurd claims. He stopped 7 wars. Well, he was also going to stop Ukraine and Russia on day one. He was going to get inflation down on day one. Grocery prices were going to be down on day one. And I'm thinking, is day one still going on? Because I haven't seen those things happen yet.
Yeah, right. Just an embarrassment all around.
It is.
And additionally, yeah, I'll get you in a second there, Leslie. He besides the speech, he also embarrassed himself by there was the elevator stopped while he was about to get on it, and he's claiming sabotage. Meanwhile, it was one of his staffers. He complained about the teleprompter not working. Well, his people were operating it. He said the sound system was not working, and that was sabotage. Well,
which all comes down to he wanted to remodel.
People can hear it as a translation.
Yeah.
Leslie,
well, first of all, I just think that the United Nations should have enforced their 15-minute rule, and they should have told him, you're up, and cut the mic. Because
they're in New York, they could have borrowed the hook from the Apollo Theater.
I think people need to follow the rules. He is a person who will just overrun any rule if he's given the opportunity. And also, he's a 79-year-old man in cognitive decline. It is obvious. We've all known people who have dementia. Both my parents have passed, and they ended up with dementia. And so it is, he's being propped up. He really can't execute the duties as president. I don't believe that he does most of his own tweeting, and he signs these executive orders that people just put in front of him and they tell him what to say. But it's just an embarrassment. I think a lot of people listening were in shock because they could not believe that, the United States that they knew of a few years ago, that this is the leader that we have right now. And it is. But I think that, the American people are waking up. A lot of them had already didn't vote for him and didn't support him. But more and more people are seeing this. This is not who we are as a nation. This is not a functioning leader. This is not a democratic leader. This is not the way to the future. I don't know. He's stuck in his own mind, his life of grievances that he just can't get out of. He's stuck there.
Executing duties is probably all he's about good for anymore at this point. That's a poop joke. All right, I do have to move on.